What we were very, very keen to do was create 3D NFTs. No one seemed to be doing that. With the blockchain, these items go on forever. If Terra Virtua disappeared one day, that does not affect the permanence of the item you've bought from us.
Hey guys, welcome back to Altcoin Buzz Spotlight with me, Leah Heilpan, the show where we speak to entrepreneurs, innovators, and thought leaders in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. Joining us today is Gary Bracey, the CEO of Terra Virtua, the company putting VR and AR on the blockchain. Terra Virtua brings you digital collectible merchandise from some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry, including legendary films, Paramount Pictures, and The Godfather. You can buy, sell, or trade, or you can just appreciate their lifelike nature, which we'll get to a little later in the show. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the show, then let us know in the comment section below. Tell us who you want us to interview next. And if you enjoyed the segment, then hit the like button. Gary, great to have you on Altcoin Buzz Spotlight today. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Leah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So right off the bat, I do want to jump straight in. Can you explain to me how you actually got the copyright owners for The Godfather? Because this is one of the most infamous movies out there. So explain, how did they actually give you the license to create those NFTs on the blockchain?
Well, we're quite fortunate. The background of myself and Doug Dyer, who's our COO, is video games. And both of us were very active in licensing back in the day. I licensed all sorts of things like Rambo, Jurassic Park, RoboCop. Doug headed up licensing for THQ Mobile. So we had our contacts in that space, and we've got someone acting for us who's pretty well connected in the IP space. And because we had a good relationship in particular with the head of licensing at Paramount, we decided that would be our first stop. So we had a chat with them. We didn't have an awful lot of money at the time. So we were looking at properties and IP that we could get at relatively low cost. So we discussed licensing the posters from the film library. And of course, Paramount have a lot of iconic movies. And of course, included in that was The Godfather. So we hit on that. We've got quite a few licenses in that one deal. And what they then did was they provided us with amazing material. So not just the standard Godfather poster that everyone is familiar with, the black and white picture of Marlon Brando and the puppet string logo. There was all sorts of really stylized and cool artwork that hadn't previously been released, at least not in the West. So we trawled through the portfolio they sent us, and we identified some really, really great images, and decided that we'd release those in limited quantity, obviously on the blockchain. And that's how it all sort of kicked off in that regard.
So really never underestimate the magic of networking, I guess, and all that experience that you build up over, over your career, essentially. So tell us then, what other gaming companies and film companies are you working with to produce NFTs?
Well, we also, around about the same time, we signed a deal with Legendary Entertainment. And amongst other things, they do Godzilla. But we identified Lost in Space, the new TV series, relatively new TV series from Netflix. Legendary produced that. Which is based on the old iconic TV series of the 60s. But there was a lot of great imagery in there. And what we wanted to do, we had The Godfather and we had the rights for posters. And of course, those are 2D images. But what we were very, very keen to do was create 3D NFTs. No one seemed to be doing that. So what we wanted to do was make 3D and animated collectibles, which meant we needed characters, we needed ideally organic and animatable characters. So we hit on Lost in Space. They've got this great robot. They've got a number of great characters. And of course, they have vehicles. They have creatures. So we licensed all of that. And then we had to create the 3D models in very, very high definition and rig them and animate them for NFTs. So that was another big one, which we've just launched, what we're calling season 1, with season 2 to come out shortly later. We've got a number in the pipe with Paramount. Our next release, and this is probably an exclusive, is Top Gun, which is obviously a very, very big movie. And we also have the rights for the forthcoming Top Gun 2. You're getting this hot off the presses now. So Top Gun 2 was actually supposed to be released in July, and we were going to do a concurrent release of our collectibles with the movie. But because of Corona and everything else, that's been delayed, I think, until the end of the year. I think it's December now. So we're going to run with, we've got some great imagery from Paramount. So we're going to run with the sort of classic Top Gun to begin with, and then later in the year we'll be releasing Top Gun 2.
Wow, so some very big names there, so really exciting. But I want your opinion then. Do you think that the market is actually ready for this kind of technology? Because I guess, blockchain technology, it's still so new, not a lot of people know much about it. So, when you sort of sign these deals and you approach these companies or however, you guys do it, are they ready for it?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. I was involved with games, computer games, not video games. They were computer games in the 80s. And we started licensing movies to make games from. And we were a sort of distraction to the movie companies. They'd get a couple of $1,000 in guarantees, but they didn't really expect to earn much more from that. Then we released RoboCop, which became the first million-unit selling game that was licensed. And the film company realized they could actually make serious revenues from these. So the floodgates opened, and everyone started licensing movies to make games from. We're in a similar sort of phase here now with NFTs. The problem with collectibles at the moment and the blockchain generally is that it doesn't appeal to the mass market, to the mainstream. Most people are deeply suspicious of the blockchain because they can automatically associate blockchain with Bitcoin, and they hear all these nightmare stories about the dark web and funding terrorism and drugs and everything else. So the whole blockchain vibe has quite a negative image in the mainstream. No one really understands the technology, and therefore there's a sense of distrust. However, we all know that there are enormous benefits, and at some point it is going to become mainstream. And we thought we'd do our bit there, and we'd try and accelerate that. And collectibles and collectability is ingrained in human nature. We start off as kids and we may collect stamps and go on to trading cards and baseball cards and so on, up to action figures today and comic books and everything else. So collecting is ingrained in us. So we decided that was the lowest hanging fruit. And what we wanted to do was bring NFTs into the mainstream, which is why we targeted high profile IPs. So people could identify with them. And we didn't want to talk necessarily about blockchain and ledgers and immutability and all these things, the buzzwords that go along with it, because people don't get it, they don't understand it. And so we thought we'd create a sort of Trojan horse, if you like, and get people comfortable with the concept. We do explain blockchain in our literature as a way of securing these elements, these collectibles, and they're there on a ledger, held on a ledger forever and ever. It's your proof of ownership. No one can steal them. We all know the benefits, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we have created a very, very straightforward an intuitive site marketplace for collectibles. We've designed it, as I say, our background, pretty much the whole team, our background is video games. So we're very cognizant of how UI and UX works for the mass market. You've got to make it simple. You've got to draw people in. You've got to make it pretty understandable, but above all, simple. So we've spent a long time honing this and getting it right and making it friendly for people to explore, to discover, to investigate, and then gradually draw them in on the whole collectible situation, if you like, so that they can discover, buy, collect, trade. We're going to be slowly evolving the whole platform to incorporate gamification. Gamification is going to be very, very key in this, encouraging people to collect sets, having the NFTs, I mentioned before, they will animate. Well, some of them will interact with each other. So if you had the Lost in Space robot with the Lost in Space Will Robinson, for instance, you could have them separately and they'll have some nice animations. But if you have them both, they can conceivably interact with each other. And that's in the roadmap. We have some amazing plans to create this whole world, really. But initially, we've got to get the barriers down and get the mainstream interested. So what we've done is we've just started off with a relatively simple marketplace. Of course, we accept ETH, but we also accept fiat, which I think is quite uncommon in the world of NFTs. And we have the platform, the general marketplace platform, which I can show you shortly. And then we have a mobile AR app, so you can appear and video a scene with you in your home next to your collectible, as though it was actually there, and then posted on Instagram or Facebook or whatever you like. And we wanted to create a very social, media-friendly application as well. And then we've got the Fan Cave, and the Fan Cave is truly revolutionary. It's a 3D environment, your lounge. It is exactly as it sounds, a fan cave, where you can display and store all of your 3D collectibles and 2D that you amass from the Terra Virtua collection. You have shelves. They'll all be sitting there and animating if you wish them to. There's a TV streaming trailers from the movies that you've collected memorabilia from. You've got big plinths where you can have full-size figures, like the robot from Lost in Space can be standing there animating. And we're gradually introducing other interactive elements like pinball machines and dartboards. You'll be able to completely customize this room. And then later on, we're introducing, well, in about 3 months, the Terra Dome, which is a huge space. And again, personalized space that is completely yours. And you can house your full-size aircraft, cars, spaceships, big stuff.
And you mentioned, that it's in human nature to want to get involved in collectibles. You say, we've been doing it since we were young. And you guys clearly provide, I guess, that futuristic touch to it. So with that simplicity and not necessarily having to explain blockchain technology to the people that you work with, do you think that this then could be the catalyst to taking blockchain technology mainstream, particularly, when we hear about gamers losing their assets online and so on, what do you think? Do you think that then, therefore, this is essentially that catalyst, this boost that we need?
It sounds a bit arrogant to suggest that, but yes, that's what we're hoping for. We believe, that this can only be successful if it's attractive to the mainstream. And one comment you just made then is very, very apt, and it's one of the explainers we use when trying to explain what the blockchain is. As you mentioned, people who buy items in a game, whether it's Fortnite or Warcraft or whatever, they can trade them, they can buy them. In some cases, they can trade them. And it's all very good until that game is taken offline. And once that game is taken offline, which at some point in the future it will be, all of those assets disappear. And what we say is, with the blockchain, these items go on forever. So they're not necessarily associated with the game, but if Terra Virtua disappeared one day and we're no longer around, that does not affect the permanence of the item you've bought from us. That will outlive us far and away forever and ever. So that is one of the elements of the blockchain that we can explain in quite simple terms. And yes, this is one of the compelling reasons we're hoping it will attract the mainstream.
And that's just the beauty, and that's just the beauty, of blockchain technology. And I guess, that is the simplest way to sort of put it. So with all of this in mind, how many users do you actually have at the moment? And then how many users do you expect to have a year from now?
Well, that's a very good question. We've got very, very few users. We launched, about a week ago. We've done no marketing. We've done a little bit on our own social Twitter feed, but we haven't gone out. In fact, this is probably one of the first. Altcoin Buzz have been very, very supportive of us. And I think apart from Altcoin Buzz, there's been no other. You can do a search. There's been nothing else about us except on our own social media. And that's been deliberate because we know that if we launch this stealthily, as we have done, then the initial people who will discover this will be dyed-in-the-wool NFT collectors. And that's what we wanted, because we wanted those people to come along. They're used to purchasing in Ethereum, they're used to purchasing NFTs, and we wanted to make sure that the site was robust, that it was friendly, that it did what it needed to do. And we make no secret that this is an open beta at the moment. It's still, it's still in test. It's fully functional, but it's still in test. So we've had those first arrivals come, and it's maybe a couple of hundred, that's all. But that's all we wanted. And we've had some great feedback already. We've had some pretty impressive sales, which we weren't expecting at all. And then we're just tweaking the site again now from the feedback we've received, a couple of minor bugs, and then we're going to release in another week, so a week yesterday, next Tuesday, we're going to start getting some publicity more in the mainstream, so in gamer press and that type of thing, a wider social reach, and hoping to attract the initial early adopters from the mainstream to come and investigate what it's all about.
Yeah, and I think, during this whole conversation, you've created a beautiful illustration of what these animations look like. So I think it's time to actually share your screen with us and do a demo for us. But I just want to quickly ask you, so just for the audience's purposes, the reason why we're sharing your screen is because right now I think there are some issues on Apple software, and I use Apple software. So do you want to just quickly explain when will users actually be able to download the app on Apple?
We are hoping within the next 4 weeks. It may be sooner. We do have some issues we have to iron out, and we're very, very conscious that there's a huge potential audience who have iOS devices. So we're just trying to overcome that at the moment. But it's also obviously interacting with other platforms as well, that there are technical considerations. We're hoping within the next month. Hopefully it'll be even sooner, but we want to get it. The mantra has always been getting it right is more important than getting it quick. So we want to get it quickly, but we don't want to compromise the quality.
Okay, so it's definitely coming, but since it's not here right now, you will have to share your screen for us. So let's start with the VR.
Okay, so I've come on, this is the landing page. You've got to, you can browse first, but obviously we encourage you to sign in and register if necessary. You don't have to have a wallet address or anything. If you do, we accommodate that, but if you don't, we can introduce it later. And so very simply, going from the top of the screen, you can filter it. As I say, we've got 3 basic genres at the moment. We've got Godfather, which is Paramount, which is that logo. We have Legendary Entertainment, which is Lost in Space. And then we have our own little androids called VFlex. And these are all, we've imbued them with personalities, different genres. And so what you can do is you can scroll around, see the different, what we have here, characters from Lost in Space. These are our VFlex. There's a Godfather poster. So what you can do is if we go, let me find something.
Can we open one up and see what they look like?
So I was just looking. So you click on one, you get a much more detailed view of that character, but then you can view him in 3D. I just hope when you see it, the frame rate's okay, because it does animate very, very smoothly. I don't know how well that's coming through to you, but can you see?
Yeah, it's good. I think also it's just important just to mention, since we are sharing the screen and I am then recording this screen.
So the quality is going to...
The quality has obviously dropped. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you've got the full 3D model here. I don't know whether you can see it on your screen. Obviously, I'm screen sharing, which tends to compromise the quality and fidelity a little bit. Yeah. But what we have is a very high resolution 3D model with a great frame rate. It's looking really good. And I hasten to add, this is just a bog standard laptop. This is not a desktop with a powerful 3D card. So everything's optimized, and you can spin him around and have a look. And that's just a good example of one of our NFTs. Let me go through back again and just very quickly show you. There's a great one of the robot here. I mentioned the robot before, who is quite an iconic character in Lost in Space. This is when the robot gets mad and goes into battle mode. This is probably one of the most iconic scenes from the TV series. But now you can put it in your own little space, your own little personal space. So here's your fan cave. You can look around, and
there it is.
There's the V-Flect that I bought earlier. So if I click on it, the one I click on then goes onto the plinth and then animates and does their special moves and everything else. So that's the V-Flect. You can see there's a pinball there. If I go here, and there's a trailer for Top Gun on the screen, you can see there's full audio. I've just muted it all. And you can change what's on the TV by pressing the remote control there. If you bought Godfather posters, you can change them and display them in these frames on the wall. These are where your collectible figures will go, whether they're lost in space or, in fact, I can do that now. So earlier on this morning, I did buy Don West. So I click on that. I can change.
There it is.
I've got a Don West there. I download it. This is really, really simple and straightforward. And I actually purchased this morning. And I place it on the plinth. And there he is. He's now in my room. I can, and this again gives you an idea of the detail. I mentioned the detail before. I don't know whether you're getting this because of the compression, but this is truly very, very detailed. So he's full animation. So basically, obviously the room's a little empty at the moment. There's not many collectibles, but there's lots of stuff you can interact with. There's the record players.
It looks absolutely fantastic. And I think if you want to be able to then see them in real life and have that augmented reality kind of experience, we can do that too. So Garrett, you're going to share your screen for us, your screen on your phone, and show us that augmented reality experience.
Okay, so you download the Terra Virtua app.
Yep. I can see it. Looks perfect.
Okay, and you go to My Stuff, and I've got Dom West there, as you know, so I'll click on him. View in AR, can you see that?
Yep, I can see it.
And then what I have to do is find a suitable surface. Tell me if the screen runs up.
So you have to have a surface?
Yeah, you need a flat surface to put him on. So there we go. And he's loading in. And there's Don West in my kitchen.
Wow, look at that.
Can you see?
That looks fantastic.
And of course,
yeah, I can see.
And of course, the ideal thing is I got my wife this morning to film it so that I was standing next to him, and it looks as though I'm standing with Don West from Lost in Space, or the robot, or whoever I've got.
Lift it a bit higher. Lift your phone a bit higher. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that.
You can either take a photo, which I've done there, or I can, and there's a share button, or I can take video and just hold down the video button.
Yeah, I think it looks fantastic.
There you go, a live demo.
Perfect. Gary, thank you so much. That demo was absolutely brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure. I don't think we've ever done a live demo on the show before, so that's fantastic. No.
But at least it works.
I think it was great. No, but I'm absolutely excited for the release with Apple, because I definitely want to give that a go. Love the idea that you can sort of choose that character and stand next to it, have that photo taken. Creates a whole different type of Madame Tussauds kind of experience. I don't know if people outside the UK would get that reference.
Yeah,
it looks great. Gary, thank you so much. Such a pleasure having you on the line with us today.
Thanks so much. Thanks a lot. See you soon.